What's up, everybody? This is the Benchwarmers back with a video. We're going to be doing a second round preview. Thank you so much for the support on our last few videos on the NFL draft. Those are some of our best performing videos ever, and we couldn't be more appreciative of the support we received on those videos and the criticism too. I mean, honestly, there was a bunch of criticism, but you're entitled to your opinion. We're entitled to ours. We really enjoyed it. But anyways, let's go talk about the Bucks Nets series starting today. So we're going to have each series. We're going to talk about three main points and then end with our predictions. So my first topic is going to be about the Nets' historically great offense. So during the regular season and playoffs combined, the Nets, when they have the big three on the floor, have a 122.4 offensive rating, which is basically the best offensive rating ever, and it's not even close. I think the 1980s Denver teams might have gotten like really close to there, but I think that this in this era is just extremely amazing. And why? Because they have three All NBA players who can give 30 points on any night. You have Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, who combined have averaged 85 points per game in the first round versus the Celtics. And this is with having great defenders like Marcus Smart guarding them. So when you're facing a team like the Bucks, who have some good defenders, they'll likely have around 80 plus points per game. And they could have one game where they combine for over 100 points. And the crazy thing which the Bucks will have to do is they cannot double any of these players when they're on the floor, especially when they're in the starting lineup, because if you double one player, even one of the three players, then you're leaving a guy like Joe Harris, who led the league in 3-point percentage open from three. He shot like 47% from three, and he's averaging like 10 to 15 points per game in the playoffs. So he hits like 4 threes a game, and then the Nets are just rolling and coasting. So they need the Bucks need an effective defensive plan to stop this.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the Bucks defense. So I guess I'll elaborate on what Aki said. So I think the Bucks defense is actually in a better place than the Heat were. So starting off with Drew Holiday, he's a really good defender and he's a really good two-way player. He defended Jimmy Butler very well in the Heat Bucks series. So I'm confident that he'll be able to defend Kyrie or Harden very well. He's going to be on one of them. And then Giannis will be on KD most likely. And Giannis is a really good defender. So I think it's going to come down to KD's three-point shot making abilities because Giannis is really good in the paint. And then as for the one that Drew Holiday doesn't guard, that's going to be a little bit more tough because Middleton and Connaughton aren't the best defenders, but they're still decent. And also Joe Harris will be another difficult player to guard because he's really good as a three-point shooter. But when you look at the bench depth, I think the Bucks definitely have a better bench depth with Jeff Green gone. So I think it's going to come down to whether or not Middleton or Connaughton or whoever the person guarding the person that Drew Holiday doesn't guard can do their job properly.
And I'm going to talk about the matchups that are occurring in the paint. So obviously the Nets have the best backcourt in the league pretty much, but they really, really struggle on the interior. And what made it so easy for them to beat the Celtics was that the Celtics really couldn't exploit that weakness very well. Their best players in the interior are like Tristan Thompson and Robert Williams. Even Robert Williams managed to have 9 blocks in a game against the Nets. He couldn't do that against any other team probably. And obviously the Bucks are going to be much, much more difficult to deal with on the interior, both in terms of rebounding, defending in the paint, and scoring in the paint, because you have Giannis, who is a great two-way player, and Brook Lopez, who is a defensive stalwart. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Nets are able to respond to this. Personally, I think it's going to come down to whether they can bend but not break. I think as long as they show enough resistance on the interior, the backcourt will do more than enough to win games for them.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good series. We saw in that back-to-back games when James Harden was sitting, those two performances in the regular season were amazing. Giannis was dominant. KD had some really good performances, and Kyrie was pretty good on his own right. However, I think when it comes to the playoffs, I don't think it'll be that good of a series. I think that the Nets will be able to hold on somewhat effectively. I think that they have sufficient coaching to build a semi-wall against Giannis, and if they perform that even moderately effectively, I think that having James Harden, Kyrie Irving as playmakers, and KD is just an amazing scoring threat, averaging like 35 points a game. I think that's just going to be too much, and I think Nets will have a gentleman's sweep. They'll win in 5 versus the Bucks.
I agree. I think the Nets are going to win in 6, though. I think it's definitely going to come down to the Nets offense and the Bucks defense because I think even when the Nets defense is really bad, their offense is usually just so good that it overwhelms the other team. Like that's what we saw in the Celtics series. The Celtics were able to score 120 points multiple times, but the Nets were just simply better on offense. And I think the Nets offense is just too good for the Bucks defense. So I think the Nets are going to be able to win.
Yeah, I pretty much have nothing else to add, really. Obviously, as Aki said, the Nets have one of the best offenses of all time, and I don't think that the Bucks are going to be able to handle it. I also have the Nets winning in 6. So that wraps it up for this series preview between the Bucks and the Nets. Stay tuned because we're going to be making them for all of the other conference semifinal series in the next few days. This is the Benchwarmers signing out. See ya.